After 15 years, my son revealed, change your mind or leave. I discovered an unexpected change. John Miller stood frozen, heart pounding in his chest, as Alex dropped the ultimatum like a bombshell. Change your mind or leave. The weight of those words pressed down on him, twisting in his gut, as a wave of confusion washed over his mind. Just months before, they had shared laughter over dinner, discussing Alex's future, their dreams. But now, in the dim light of their small kitchen, it felt as though a chasm had opened between them. For years, John had been the sole guardian of their shared dreams after his wife passed away. He worked harder than most, juggling 3 jobs, pouring his soul into every shift at the grocery store and every late-night cleanup job he could find. The 3 jobs paid the bills, kept food on the table, and somehow kept his connection with Alex intact, at least until now. The once bright-eyed boy who clamored for attention had morphed into a teenager with dreams that soared beyond the cornfields of their small Midwest town. Yes, Alex wanted to be an artist, chasing inspiration in a city bursting with light and color. But all John could think about were the sneers and whispers Alex faced at school, the cruel jokes about his father's lowly jobs. John had endured the long hours to provide a home, to create stability, to emulate the American dream he believed in. Yet now, he feared that dream was slipping away, like grains of sand through his fingers. Desperate for clarity, he slipped out into the stillness of the evening, the streetlights casting long shadows that mirrored his own despair. Each step resonated with the weight of choices, a rhythm like a heartbeat heavy with fear. What was he doing wrong? He had devoted his life to raising Alex, teaching him values of hard work, resilience, and tradition, but was he actually hindering his son's future? John felt the cool night air swirl around him, taking with it the memories of his wife's laughter and warmth. He remembered the warmth radiating as they shared big dreams, plans for their family, and the love they built together. The realization struck him like a thunderclap. In trying to protect Alex, was he holding him back? Conflicting thoughts stormed through his mind like dark clouds. Was it time to let go? Returning home, a jumble of emotions crashed through him. His eyes fell on an unfinished canvas propped on the dining table, Alex's art, once neglected but now revealing a flicker of his son's soul. John's heart ached. The boy in that artwork was alive with promise and passion, everything John wanted for him. As he sat down, the silence engulfed him. How could he support Alex's dreams while reconciling that wish with his own struggles? Could the American dream evolve, embrace creativity beyond hard work, and encourage hope? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. John's fingers trembled as he traced the edge of the canvas. Fear and love tangled painfully inside him. The room was silent, the air thick with tension. Could he bear the thought of Alex leaving, pursuing something extraordinary in another city? The words lingered, change your mind or leave. As he stared into the half-finished piece of art, the weight of his emotions felt heavier than ever. He stood teetering on the edge of that chasm between love and tradition, longing for resolution yet brimming with uncertainty about the path ahead. What would he choose, and how would it shape both their lives? The next morning dawned gray and heavy, mirroring the weight on John's heart. He stumbled through his usual routine, making breakfast in a daze. The scent of pancakes wafted through the air, but the sweet aroma felt hollow, devoid of the warmth it once carried. Alex was still asleep, blissfully unaware of the turmoil swirling in the house. John slid into a chair at the table, a cup of coffee warming his hands, though he couldn't muster the energy to drink it. He needed to have a conversation with Alex, but how could he find the right words? Each thought was like the morning fog outside, thick and obscuring, getting tangled up in regret and fear. When Alex finally emerged, the sunlight peeked through a crack in the curtains, transforming the kitchen in subtle ways. John's heart quickened at the sight of his son. Alex was a picture of youth and determination, wearing a faded band t-shirt splattered with paint. But beneath that casual facade, John sensed a storm brewing too, a restlessness that mirrored his own. "Hey, Dad," Alex said, stretching sleep from his muscles, his voice still rough from slumber. "What's for breakfast?" "Pancakes," John replied, forcing a smile that felt stretched thin. As they sat down to eat, the clinking of forks and the low hum of the radio filled the silence, but it felt like a fragile barrier against the storm of unsaid things. John stole glances at Alex, at the way he savored each bite, lost in the moment. It pained him to think that soon, those moments might be fewer. "Dad, can we talk?" Alex's voice snapped John out of his reverie. The way his son waited, eyes bright with a mix of hope and fear, made John's heart ache. There it was, the moment he had been dreading and yearning for. "I know we haven't talked about what I said last night, but I really want to explain." "Okay," John said, nodding, though dread coiled in his stomach. "I love art," Alex started. "It's not just a hobby for me. It's everything. I see colors and shapes in a way that brings me to life. I know you worry about me, about what will happen if I pursue this. But I need you to understand." He paused, searching for the right words. "This is my dream, Dad. It's not just a phase or something I'll grow out of. It's my passion." John swallowed, trying to push down the storm of emotions welling up inside him. He felt torn. The urge to protect, to shield his son from the harsh realities of life wrestled with the desperate wish to support him in chasing his dreams. "Alex," John began, his voice wavering as he fought against the well of tears threatening to spill. I don't want you to have to struggle as I have. The world can be so unforgiving. What if you fail?" A silence enveloped them, thick like fog. Alex leaned forward, his eyes filled with sincerity. "But what if I fly, Dad? What if I create something beautiful? I need to try. I can't grow if I'm scared all the time. And I want you to be a part of that journey." The words landed with a weight that reverberated in John's heart. It struck him that Alex wasn't asking for permission, he was inviting him into a transformation they could face together. Slowly, the realization began to take shape in John's mind. He didn't have to choose between his love for Alex and his fear of what lay ahead. Could he embrace the change? Could he let go in a way that brought them closer together rather than apart? The question lingered as the moment stretched. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the sound of a loud crash echoed from the living room. Alex jumped up, eyes wide with alarm. What was that? John's heart raced again, but this time for another reason. The moment had shifted, pulling them both from the brink of a defining conversation. What if that's just the cat? Alex offered, fear replaced with determination. Let's check it out. With an uncertainty that felt newly invigorated, John followed. The air buzzed with possibility. They were stepping into uncharted territory together, where every stumble could lead to a new discovery. But would they find something unexpected in the chaos that awaited them? As John and Alex rushed into the living room, their hearts pounding, the scene before them was chaotic. The bookshelf had toppled over, books strewn across the floor like fallen leaves. At the heart of the mess lay Whiskers, their cat, who seemed to be both guilty and amazed at her own mischief. John blinked at the sight, relief flooding him. "Whiskers!" Alex exclaimed, bending down to inspect the now hiding cat. "You little troublemaker. What did you do?" It was a small moment, but it broke the tension that had filled the air between father and son just moments before. John felt a grin spread across his face, the first genuine smile of the day. As they began to clean up, their laughter mingled with the soft mews of the cat. "Maybe we should get her a helmet," Alex joked, lifting a copy of Moby Dick from the pile. "Or a seatbelt." "Yeah, she seems to need the extra safety precautions," John replied, feeling lighter. The impending conversation about art and dreams faded into the background, replaced by this comforting rhythm. But even as they laughed, John's mind drifted. He couldn't shake the feeling that this disruption was significant, like a prelude to something bigger. As they worked, he glanced at Alex. The laughter had resumed, but John sensed an undercurrent of whatever weight still clung to them. "Hey, you're really serious about this art thing, huh?" John asked, half teasing but letting the question linger. "Absolutely," Alex replied, gathering some books. "It's like breathing for me. I don't even know how to explain it." "Then what's the next step?" John ventured, curious but hesitant. "I'm thinking of applying to art school," Alex said, his voice steady yet revealing the gravity of his words. "I want to share my work, you know. See if it resonates with others." The statement hung in the air. John's heart turned over. An art school. The world outside their home seemed much larger and scarier now. What if they don't get it? What if they think your art isn't good enough? Alex's expression shifted, a glimmer of disappointment flashing briefly. "But if I don't try, then I'll never know. I might fail, but that's part of the journey. Isn't it?" John opened his mouth to respond, but the familiar knot returned. It was easier to stay in the safe zone, to avoid risks, but wasn't he always telling Alex to dream big? Before he could formulate a response, Whiskers darted across the room, chasing after a stray piece of ribbon that had fallen from the broken bookshelf. "Look at her," Alex laughed, pointing. "If Whiskers can be reckless, then so can I." That warmth bubbled back up in John's chest. There was something about the way that little cat had taken a leap that reminded him of what was at stake, what they were both afraid to embrace. "Okay, maybe chasing dreams is like chasing ribbons, a little messy but worth it," John said, his voice softer now. Could he really support Alex in this unpredictable journey, even if it terrified him? Just then, a loud knock at the door jolted them both. They exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping in again. The day's swing had turned once more, and with it, the potential for something profound. What if this visit carried news, something that could change everything once more? "What now?" Alex asked, apprehensive. John felt in his gut that this was no ordinary visitor. "I don't know, but we better find out." As he opened the door, a wave of anticipation crashed over him. Who would be standing there, and how would it impact the conversation that was already lingering on the edge of resolution? John pulled the door open, his heart thumping in sync with the tension in the air. Standing before him was a stranger, cloaked in a heavy jacket despite the mild weather. His long hair framed a face lined with concern, and the moment their eyes met, John felt a shiver pass through him. "Mr. Miller?" the man asked, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "I need to talk to you. It's important." John glanced back at Alex, whose wide eyes mirrored his own unease. The chaos of the living room transformed into a backdrop for something serious, something that felt like it was about to unfold. "Who are you?" John managed, instinctively stepping in front of Alex as if to shield him. "My name is Mark." "I'm an old friend of your brother's," Mark replied, hesitating as if choosing his words carefully. "I know this is unexpected, but I think you should sit down for this." "Chris." John blurted, the name sparking a flood of memories, laughter, fight, the rift that had driven them apart years ago. He hadn't thought of his brother in ages. "What has he got to do with this?" "We don't have time for pleasantries," Mark said, his eyes darting to Alex, then back to John. "Chris, he's in trouble." The weight of those words crashed over them with the force of a tidal wave. John's chest tightened. "What do you mean? Is he hurt?" Mark took a deep breath, his gaze steady. "He's struggling. He reached out to me and to you. He's trying to make amends, but he needs your help." John's vision blurred. The relationship with Chris had always been complex, one filled with love but also betrayal, disappointment, and a yearning for reconciliation that never came. Why now? Why after all these years? "I don't have all the answers," Mark replied, his voice softer now. "But he regrets the choices he made, and he wants to rebuild. It's important that you hear him out." He needs you more than ever. John felt the walls of his carefully built world shake. He looked at Alex, who was quiet, absorbing the news like a sponge. This wasn't just about him anymore, this could change everything for them. What about you? Alex finally spoke, his young voice cutting through the lingering silence. Why are you here? What do you want? I want to help, Mark answered. But it starts with you both understanding what's really going on. Chris he's been through a lot. The knot returned in John's gut, tighter than before. A part of him wanted to run, to slam the door, to escape this unexpected confrontation. But another part, the part that had raised Alex to face challenges head-on, steeled his resolve. Okay. Let us talk, John said finally, his voice firm despite the turmoil inside. But I need you to be honest with us. All this time, I thought I'd lost him for good. As the three of them moved into the living room, John could feel a strange mix of emotions swirling around: fear, hope, and an overwhelming desire for truth. The day's earlier laughter felt distant, overshadowed by the gravity of the moment. As they settled into the cluttered room filled with books and scattered memories, John realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. A chance to confront the past and to open themselves up to the futures they each needed but were too afraid to pursue. What would Chris say when they finally opened the floodgates of truth? Would it heal them, or break them apart further? One thing was certain: there would be no turning back now. Are you ready? John asked, feeling the weight of his decision settling in the leap he had to take, not just for himself, but for Alex, for Whiskers, and for the love of family. But what awaited them on the other side of that conversation, he could hardly imagine. As John settled onto the worn couch, the weight of the moment pressed down on him like a heavy blanket. The air was thick with anticipation. He glanced at Alex, who perched on the edge of a chair with an innocence that tugged at John's heart. His son's eyes glimmered with curiosity, but there was also a flicker of fear. Mark sat across from them, his intensity palpable. "Thank you for agreeing to talk," he said, breaking the silence. "I know this is all so sudden, but Chris needs you. There's been a lot going on that you don't know about." John's mind raced. Thoughts swirled like leaves in a storm. "Just tell us already," he urged, his voice barely masking the anxiety knotting his stomach. "What's happening with Chris?" Mark took a moment, his gaze drifting momentarily to the floor. When he met John's eyes again, his expression was resolute. "Chris got mixed up with some people who aren't good for him. He was trying to find himself after leaving home, but it led him down a dark path. Now, he's afraid he's lost everything." Panic coursed through John. "What do you mean, lost everything?" "His family. His job." "Something like that," Mark replied, his voice steady yet layered with emotion. "He's been in and out of trouble, and now he's at a point where he's reached out to me, to you. He wants to make things right. But he needs you to meet him, to really listen." John's thoughts flitted to the last time he had seen Chris, the bitter arguments, the harsh words exchanged. They had both built walls around themselves, and the silence between them had turned deafening. "I don't even know where he is," John said, his voice cracking with uncertainty. "Why would he think I do want to help after everything?" "Because blood is thicker than water," Mark said, leaning forward, his eyes earnest. "He knows he messed up. But he's alone now and afraid. If he loses this last chance, it could break him." Alex fidgeted in his seat, his young brow furrowing in confusion. He had never known the older brother that John painted through stories only a silhouette shaped by John's disappointment. "Dad, what if he really wants to change?" he asked softly, searching John's face for clarity. The question landed like a stone in John's chest. Could it be possible? Could Chris really want to be part of their lives again? The ache of longing mixed with fear of the unknown. Reconciliation could mean stepping into a tangled past filled with pain, but there was also the possibility of healing and understanding. "I don't know, Alex," John finally admitted, feeling the weight of his son's gaze upon him. "I've held on to so much anger. I just don't know if I can forgive him after everything he did. The room fell into silence, thick and uncertain. Mark cleared his throat, breaking through the thick cloud looming over them. The past doesn't have to define your future. Families can be repaired, love can mend the deepest wounds if both sides are willing to work for it. The idea lingered in the space between them like a fragile thread. John felt his heart bounce between hope and dread. Was it really possible to rebuild what once was? Did he have the strength to face the man who had hurt him so deeply? Do you want to meet Chris? Mark asked, his voice low, almost a whisper, as if afraid to break the fragile moment. John locked eyes with Alex. This wasn't just about him anymore. His decisions could resonate throughout their lives. Taking a deep breath, he began the vote that felt monumental, no matter how small it seemed. Let us meet him, John said, his chest tightening around the weight of that choice. What would Chris say when faced with the family that had moved on without him? How would Alex respond to a brother he had never known? The journey ahead loomed daunting, but the thought of reclaiming a lost connection ignited a flicker of something powerful, perhaps hope. Where do we go from here? John's voice wavered, uncertainty still clouding his thoughts. Tomorrow, Mark said, determination radiating from him. I'll help you find him. As they prepared to embark on this uncharted journey, John couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would alter everything again. Would they find a path to healing, or would it lead to more heartache? The thought hung in the air, leaving him restless and longing for clarity amidst the impending storm. As dawn broke the next morning, John found himself staring out the window. The sun peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, yet it was difficult for him to feel hopeful. His heart was still heavy from the choices he had made. Turning from the window, he caught a glimpse of Alex at the breakfast table, poking at a bowl of cereal as if it were the last thing on earth he wanted. Do you think Chris will really be there? Alex asked, his voice tentative. The innocence reflected in his eyes made John's heart ache. I don't know, John replied, trying to sound more certain than he felt. But we have to try, don't we? Yeah, Alex nodded, but there was an unmistakable tension in his young face. How could he possibly comprehend the weight of a brother he had never known? The last time John had seen Chris, their relationship had crumbled into a mess of anger and disappointment. Now, the idea of mending those broken pieces was overwhelming. With a few spoonfuls of coffee in his hand, John pushed back the chair and took a moment to collect his thoughts. Mark said he would pick us up at noon. We should be ready. Time seemed to crawl as they waited. Each tick of the clock felt deafening in the quiet house. John's mind raced with a jumble of memories: laughter during family barbecues, the feel of a younger Chris's back when he learned to ride a bike, the devastating arguments that had stolen those memories from him. Mark's arrival shattered the silence. He appeared at the door, full of energy, ready to embrace the day. You ready? He asked, eyes glinting with purpose. Not sure if we ever really are, John muttered, trying to mask the tremble in his voice. That on their drive, the air in the car was thick with anticipation, weighed down by unsaid words and expectations. Alex fidgeted in the back seat while Mark navigated the winding roads toward the meeting place. John focused on the scenery rushing past, the trees, the houses, all seeming like a blur. His heart raced, the thought of facing Chris sending a thrill of anxiety through him. As they arrived at the park, John's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. The morning sun illuminated the space, making it feel both welcoming and ominous. Mark led the way, with Alex trailing behind, glancing hesitantly at his father. Do you think he'll recognize us? Alex whispered, his voice barely breaking the calm atmosphere. That's the hope, John replied, a lump forming in his throat. He felt the roots of uncertainty wrap around him tighter, threatening to pull him back into the past. They reached a clearing where people gathered for various activities. A few children played tag nearby, while adults conversed over coffee. John scanned the crowd, searching for that familiar face that felt both distant and close. There was no sign of Chris yet. Just then, Mark's eyes lit up, and he pointed into the distance. There he is, he said, Heart pounding with urgency, John turned to see a figure approaching. He looked older, rougher around the edges, the years etched into his face and the glimmer of uncertainty reflected in his eyes. Suddenly, everything felt real. "Are you ready?" Mark asked, bringing John back to the moment. "Not even close," John breathed out, his heart pounding as Chris drew nearer. Just then, the first wave of familiar shock surged through John as Chris stopped before them. He looked nervous, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, a semblance of his boyish charm still lingering beneath the layers of time apart. "Hey, Dad," Chris said, his voice low. "Hey," John managed to say, unable to push past the knot in his throat, and just like that, the moment hung heavy in the air around them, a moment brimming with potential. Would this encounter bridge the chasm between their lives, or would it further deepen the wounds they had endured? As silence filled the space between them, a feeling of uncertainty lingered, a realization that this conversation could change everything, once and for all. But as John looked into Chris's eyes, there was a flicker of something else, something he hadn't expected. Hope. Regret. The possibilities hovered like clouds overhead, and he was about to step into a storm of uncharted emotions. What would Chris say next? Would he unravel the truth behind the years of separation, or would it fracture their tentative peace again? John's heart raced with anticipation, ready for whatever was about to unfold. Chris took a hesitant step forward, his gaze darting between John and Mark, as if searching for a lifeline. "I didn't know if you'd actually come." The weight of those words crashed over John, heavy with regret and a hint of hope. "We had to," he said, his voice cracking slightly as he fought against the emotions swelling inside him. "You're still my son, no matter what has happened." Chris's lips pressed together, a mix of anger and hurt flashing in his eyes. "It doesn't feel like it. You left. You just went away." The accusation hung in the air like the thick summer humidity. John took a breath, trying to gather his thoughts. He could feel Alex's curious gaze watching them from the side, his little heart likely trying to absorb the tension. "I'm sorry for leaving, Chris. I thought it was best for everyone at the time," John replied, his voice strained with remorse. "But I've realized how wrong I was. I regret it every day." Silence enveloped them again. Time itself felt suspended. John could see Chris's shoulders tightening and his defenses building, the layers of hurt becoming more apparent. It was enough to make John ache. "Do you even know me anymore?" Chris finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper, an accusation wrapped in vulnerability. The answer stung. "I want to. I want to understand who you are now," John said, his throat tight. He glanced over at Mark and Alex, wanting them to understand this moment. "We can start fresh. Maybe we can try. Together." Chris shook his head, frustration painting his features. "I've heard that before. What is going to change this time?" He folded his arms, a shield against the hope John was trying to offer. With a deep breath, John stepped closer, unearthing memories he had tucked away for too long. "I came to realize how much I lost, how much we lost. Every birthday, every holiday. I missed so much." His voice trembled with the weight of his honesty. "I want to make up for that. You're not just a page in a book to me, Chris. You're family." For a moment, Chris's guard faltered. His eyes glistened with unshed tears as an array of emotions crossed his face: doubt, yearning, anger. The truth of their years apart seemed to close in around them, mingling with a flicker of hope. "Look, it's not that simple," Chris said, his voice stronger now, but each word was edged with pain. "You think you can just walk back into my life and pretend like nothing happened? I'm not that kid anymore, Dad. I don't want to pretend." John's heart raced, each beat echoing his desperation. "I want to understand who you've become. I want to be there, however you need me to fit into your life now." The park around them faded, the noise of laughter and chatter becoming indistinct. It was just the three of them, father, son, and the pain of the past. Alex stepped forward, clutching a small, worn-out baseball glove, small fingers nervously twining together. Maybe we could play catch. The innocence in his voice was a stark contrast to the heaviness of the moment. Chris looked down at Alex, surprise softening the edge of his anger. Catch? It's what we do, isn't it? Alex smiled, the sun illuminating the purity of that grin. John felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, a tiny bridge in a world that felt so divided. Chris glanced at John, gauging him, then back at Alex. I haven't played since everything happened. Do you want to? John asked, desperation tinting his words. A long silence followed. Chris's jaw clenched, emotions warring within him. But then, slowly, he nodded. Okay. Just let me think about it. As John sat down on a nearby bench, he felt a subtle shift in the air, tiny threads beginning to weave together. Could this be the opening they needed? But as Chris took the glove from his brother, a wave of uncertainty crashed over John again. Would this moment lead them closer, or was it just a temporary distraction from the real issues at play? The game of catch began, laughter mingling with the tension, but John was still left hanging on the edge of something deeper, a question that needed answering. Would they find common ground, or would the past forever overshadow their future? What would Chris do next? Would he take the leap to rebuild their fragile relationship, or would he retreat back into silence, another lost chance slipping through their fingers? As the ball sailed through the air, the park came alive with the sound of laughter. Alex's easy joy as he threw the ball bounced off the tension that had enveloped Chris and John like a heavy fog. It was a simple game, a dance of hesitance and spontaneity, but for John, it felt like the first tentative steps on unsteady ground. Chris stood there, unsure at first, but slowly, the corners of his lips twitched. With a flick of his wrist, he caught the ball thrown by Alex, the action filled with a mix of nostalgia and unresolved emotion. He tossed it back, and for a moment, as their eyes connected, something flickered between them: recollection, pain, longing, and maybe a hint of something like hope. See? Alex beamed, thrilled by the simple interaction. Just like old times. But old times felt like an echo, a page in a book that had been torn out. Chris's face tightened again as he caught the ball from Alex, but didn't throw it back right away. The silence grew thick, cutting through the playful shouts of children and the soft rustle of leaves overhead. Do you remember when we used to play all the time? John's voice broke through the weight in the air. You, me, and your mom. We'd spend hours out here. Chris shifted his weight, his defenses visibly rising. That was a long time ago. Things changed. The words hung heavy, each one a brick in a wall he built higher with every memory. I know, John said quietly, desperation crawling into his voice. But I don't want to keep looking back. I want to look forward. We can figure this out together, Chris. Chris shifted again, tossing the baseball lightly in his hand. You say that, but you don't know what it's been like. You left. You chose to leave us behind. I didn't choose to leave you, John pleaded. I thought I was doing what was best. I thought it would spare you from me. He hesitated, the raw emotion threatening to spill. But I was wrong. I see that now. I've seen the emptiness of my choices. Do you even know how much it hurt? Chris's voice cracked, and the facade crumbled just a bit. When you walked away, a piece of me walked away too. I became who I am because of that. Alex's face turned serious, watching them both. It was clear he didn't quite grasp the intensity of what was being said, but he could feel the heaviness of the moment. Every time I picked up a bat or a glove, it reminded me of you. It was like you had just vanished. I don't want to play pretend anymore. Chris's anger flared, but behind it, John could see the boy he once knew, a boy desperate for connection, yet terrified to reach out. I don't want you to pretend, either. I want us to be real, John said, vulnerability spilling into his words. Let me in. Let me prove that I can be a father again, in whatever way you need. I'm here now. Chris looked at him, eyes narrowing, processing the vulnerability he wasn't quite ready to embrace. The ball slipped from his fingers and rolled away, stopping under a swing set. Maybe you have to be okay with not knowing me right now. I've built my life without you. It's not easy to just. He paused, frustration and uncertainty flooding his voice, to just flip a switch and hope it all goes back to the way it was. I can handle that, John replied, panic beneath the surface, waiting like a coiled spring. I just need a chance to show you. I want to learn, Chris. Let me learn who you are. The silence wrapped around them once more, a different kind of tension building as Chris's gaze shifted to the ground. What if I don't want that? Each word felt like a blow, a door closing, but John's heart raced with something else too, a sense of determination emerging from the rubble of the past. Then we'll figure it out. Together. Chris looked at Alex, caught between childhood innocence and adult responsibility. Okay, he finally said. Let us see where this goes, but I'm not making any promises. Relief washed over John, but it was a fragile sheen over raw wounds. Could this be the beginning of the long path ahead, or was Chris just buying time, as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the park? John knew there were still hurdles to face. But today had cracked open a window. What lay ahead? Would Chris allow him to be part of his life again, or would he retreat once more into silence? The night held its breath, waiting for answers that were yet to unfold. Alex decided that throwing the ball wasn't enough. He stepped back, furrowing his brow, eyes darting between Chris and John. Hey, let us do something fun. He shouted, trying to break the tension. How about a race to the slide? Loser has to make snacks. Chris raised an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth twitching again. You mean loser has to make snacks for the winner, right? Of course. I'm already great at making snacks. Alex spread his arms wide, as if inviting everyone into his charm. John watched as Chris let out a small laugh, the sound like music to his ears. It didn't erase the heaviness in his heart, but it did crack the armor just a little. Alright, but you're going down, kid. Chris challenged, a spark of his younger self igniting in his eyes. They broke into a run, and John followed slowly, letting them drift ahead. The lightness of Alex's laughter faded into the distance, but the echo of joy rang in John's ears. He felt a swell of emotions: pride, hope, and a flicker of fear. He had no idea what path would unfold from here. When they finally collapsed onto the grass, breathless and giggling, Chris looked up at the sky. You still run like a turtle, you know, he teased Alex, who was sprawled out beside him, panting dramatically. Hey! Turtles are fast. And, obviously, graceful. Alex protested through laughter. John couldn't help but join in their playful banter, the three of them creating a bubble of life amidst the fading daylight. But as the shadows grew longer, a part of him remained alert, waiting for the moment when reality would crash back in. Chris, John finally said, the moment feeling ripe. I know things aren't suddenly fixed. I've hurt you and your mom, and I can't undo that. But I'm here. I want to learn about your life now. What you're passionate about. Chris sat up, expression shifting from laughter to contemplation. The flicker of vulnerability returned. It's not that easy. I don't just share. Then tell me something simple, John urged gently. What do you like? What does your day-to-day look like? Chris looked away, as if searching the horizon for answers. I play soccer. I like it. Soccer. That's awesome. Do you play with a team? John pressed, intrigued, and desperate to keep this connection alive. Sometimes, Chris muttered, his tone shifting again, defensive walls rising even higher. Not anymore, really. It feels weird. John's heart sank a little. You don't think you can share it with me? I promise I'll just listen. Chris's gaze fell to the ground. It's not that. It's just, everything feels complicated. You don't understand. What if I'm not what you want me to be? John's chest tightened. But I want to learn what you are. Not who I want you to be, but who you truly are. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Chris's brows furrowed with the weight of an adult burden resting on young shoulders. John could see the internal struggle through the boy's eyes. What if I'm just a disappointment? Chris finally admitted, voice breaking slightly. Then we deal with that together, John said, his own heart pounding at the raw honesty that surged in the air. I promise I won't walk away again. Just give me a chance. Chris shook his head, overwhelmed by the cacophony of emotions. It's hard, he whispered, tears threatening at the edges of his eyes. You can't just fix everything. I know, John said softly. But what if we start with small steps? Just talk. Just be here. As the park grew quiet, the world around them fading into twilight, the weight of those words settled. What if Chris took a leap, slowly allowing the connection to blossom, or what if he turned away once more, leaving John in a limbo of uncertainty? In their midst, Alex finally broke the silence with a simple stroke of brilliance. How about we have a pizza night tomorrow? I'll create some special toppings. It'll be fun. Chris looked at Alex, then at John, and for the first time, a hint of a smile lit his face. Pizza a start, right? John kept the ember of hope bright. The unspoken question lingered in the air. Was it really a start? Or just another step on uncertain ground, waiting for someone to fall? The morning sun streamed through the window, casting warm light across the kitchen where John and Alex stood, side by side. Today felt different. There was an electricity in the air that buzzed with anticipation, as if the world was holding its breath for what was to come. John stirred the pancake batter absent-mindedly but couldn't shake off the excitement that swirled inside him. Are you ready for pizza night? John asked with a smile, glancing at Alex, who was practically bouncing on his toes. Absolutely. I'm going to make the biggest masterpiece the world has ever seen. Alex announced, arms spreading wide as if embracing the universe itself. The sound of the front door opening broke through their moment, and John's heart skipped. Chris had come over. The thought pulled at John's insides. The emotions of their previous meeting danced through his mind, and he turned to face the door, breath catching as Chris entered, looking both nervous and determined. Hey, Chris greeted softly, his eyes searching the room until they landed on his father. Hey, John replied, trying to steady his voice. He could feel the weight of all their pasts hanging between them, but also the flicker of hope that moving forward was absolutely possible. Alex bounded over, beaming. You ready to make pizza? It's going to be epic. Chris blinked in surprise at the enthusiasm radiating from Alex. Sure. I guess I'm in. He replied, the corners of his lips lifting despite his cautious demeanor. John's heart warmed. Laughter filled the kitchen as Alex began to enthusiastically gather ingredients, inviting Chris to help him pick out toppings and sauces, creating a whimsical array of flavors and colors. As they prepped, John watched the two interact, the innate bond of brotherhood beginning to spark. The laughter rang light throughout the kitchen, untangling the knots of hesitation from Chris. Each unearthed memory bubbled to the surface as Alex recounted stories of missed family moments, and Chris added a few of his own, hesitant, but genuine. The last pizza night we had, we burnt everything. Chris chuckled, recalling the whimsical disaster they usually laughed about. I did my best to salvage it, but it was, chaotic. It was fun, though. Alex shouted, flour dusting his grin. Catching Chris's eye, John saw a flicker of that youthful spirit returning. Yeah, some of the best moments come from chaos. Too real, Chris replied, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. John's heart swelled as he felt the palpable shift. They were weaving connections anew, thread by thread, using laughter as their fabric. As they rolled the dough, Chris shared more about friends, about soccer, and what art truly meant to him. Each topic laid a new foundation for understanding, pushing aside the bitterness. John marveled at the young man his son had become. He felt alive with these small triumphs, this tentative dance towards reconnection. "Pizza's done!" Alex shouted, pulling everything together, and the moment transformed into chaos yet again as they all started building their culinary dreams. But as the oven hummed in the background, John's mind returned to his brother, the weight of their conversation looming again. He took a moment, waiting for Alex and Chris to get lost in their playful banter, before turning to Chris, who stood by the counter. "Hey, can we talk for a second?" John asked gently. Chris's brows knitted together, tension creeping back in. "About? About dad stuff. About where we go from here." John's voice softened, trying to bridge the distance that threatened to return. "I've realized something significant. I've spent so long holding on to pain that I forgot to carve a path forward for us." Chris shifted nervously. "I don't know what to say. It's not easy to just trust again." "After everything I get it," John interjected, feeling urgency rise inside him. "I don't want to pretend like it wasn't too complicated. But I don't want you growing up thinking our family couldn't be whole. You don't have to shoulder the weight of the past alone. I'm here, willing to listen." Chris's gaze softened slightly. It's painful to open up." "I know," John replied. "But you don't have to do it alone. It's going to take time, and I'm willing to take each step at your pace." A moment lingered before Chris nodded slowly, his shoulders relaxing just a bit. "Okay. I'm willing to try too." The honesty in his voice made John's heart swell, the bittersweet pang of what they had lost tempering into hope. "All right, let us start with sharing this pizza," John suggested, a warm smile breaking through. "How about a family favorite?" As they returned to the chaos of toppings, laughter unfurling across their kitchen, John realized the bonds were rebuilding slowly but surely. Each laugh, every shared look, and piecing together of their new normal, felt like a step closer. As they all settled down for their pizza feast, John couldn't help but steal glances at Chris and Alex, who were deep in conversation about toppings. That warmth blossomed fully in his chest, a transformative feeling of fullness that had eluded him for too long. Family had become more than just garbled memories. It was evolving, cultivating the love that still existed beneath the surface. And it invited light into dark places, finding its way where hurt had once reigned supreme. "I'm proud of you both," John said quietly, breaking into their laughter, and they looked up, surprised. "For what?" Chris asked, eyebrows raised. "For trying, for being here. It's going to take time, but we'll navigate this together. Trust me, we can make something beautiful out of this." In that moment, something shifted again. Chris smiled softly, sinking his defenses ever so slightly. Alex grinned, affirming that this moment meant everything. As they dug into their pizza, sharing bites and jokes, each heart began to understand there is power in vulnerability and healing in the simplest of joys. Together, they would chase the flavors of a future that felt inviting, woven with laughter, love, and the promise of tomorrow. The past would always be part of their story, but hope had taken root, and now it was their turn to grow. This was their moment of transformation. And John knew this was only the beginning. If you resonated with this story, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for more heartwarming tales. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find this journey of transformation. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending, because your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the hope found in this story.